Thank you, Andrew, and also thank you to ICBF for the invitation to present at this morning's session. I've found a number of the talks quite interesting, and I'm pleased to follow on from Tim because there's a similar feeling or background behind some of the tools that ADHOS has been looking at to help drive decision making on farm. And I'll get my slide up on the screen. There it is. The title of my talk is Farmer Tools Designed to Support Genetic Gain and Breeding Decisions. And I think, as Tim indicated, there are differences in individual farmers' objectives, and here's some ideas on how ADHOS has gone about addressing those. Just a little bit of context. I've given this slide at most presentations to define the Australian dairy industry. We're just below 7,000 cows, approximately 7,000 herds. 50% of those herd recorded, 1.6 million dairy cows. That's been reasonably flat in recent years, at a percentage of 44% of those being herd recorded, an average size of 230 cows. This is a schematic, or not a schematic, more of a reference diagram of ADHOS, the organisation. We're the National Genetic Evaluation Organisation in Australia for the dairy breed, and these are the three areas of activity that we focus on. The first is genetic evaluation. It's all about the science of running genetic evaluation models. In recent years, it's all about genomics, and that's the heavy lifting in terms of the science. We also collect data. Obviously, genetic evaluation requires data. We do have our own, what we really refer to as our national database. It's really the data that's provided to ADHOS for genetic evaluation purposes. We certainly don't have the kind of database system that Ireland's been able to develop, and we're quite envious of. But it's certainly also an area of research we're looking at, and that is national data. The third area in the process, the purpose of my talk this morning is about industry extension and education. And this is about providing clear messages to farmers, providing them with tools so that they can make the best use of the breeding value information we provide. So we posed a question a number of years ago, and essentially it was, how do farmers make breeding decisions? When they look at catalogues and they look at bulls available to them in the marketplace, what are the things they consider? And this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but this is certainly some of them. And the first I've put up here is the ranking of the bulls on their national index. In Australia, it's the APR, the Australian Profit Ranking. But certainly, if you look around the world, there are a vast array of indexes, and farmers will look towards those indexes when making breeding decisions. Another one we also found, though, in Australia is reliability of the proof. A lot of farmers like to see reliability in a proof. They weren't afraid of using a young bull, but they certainly weren't going to buy 100% of their semen for a given year on a bull that was only just newly proven. They wanted to have a bit of a backstop. They wanted to be able to say, I'll mix my team up, I'll pick some young bulls, but also pick some reliable bulls. There's, of course, advice from various consultants, breeding consultants, whether they be from an AI company or a reseller. They might be a consultant that's come on farm to look at specific joinings for cows. There's, of course, cost. How much is a dose of semen? What's the average price that farmer wants to pay per semen, per straw of semen, in order to make up his inventory for that year? And the last one, which is very important, and a couple of speakers have discussed this morning already, and that's the genetic merit for specific traits that farmer might be after. Some farmers might want to place greater emphasis on fertility. Some farmers might want to place greater emphasis on fat percentage. There's a range of decisions that a farmer will make based on the genetic merit of particular size for those traits of interest. And if you sum up all of those kind of activities, we call them the farmer's individual breeding objective. What's the farmer's objective when making bull selection decisions? So it's with that context, we've developed the tools that I'm going to present to you now. One of them is called the Good Bulls Guide. We have Selectable and the Genetics Progress Report. The Good Bulls Guide was released a couple of years ago now. The purpose of the guide is to provide farmers with a very clear and concise listing of size that they can then make objective decisions about the types of bulls they want. In short, it helps farmers find the bulls they want. We take the top standard deviation of bulls based on APR, so we define the very top most profitable bulls in the country. We then go through and re-rank those bulls according to a number of traits. They are APR, our major profit index, production, longevity, mastitis resistance, type and reliability. And the idea is with the guide that if a farmer has a particular breeding objective and they relate to one of these traits, is to go to the guide, find the list of bulls that matches their particular breeding objective and use that as their first cut, if you will, when making a breeding selection decision. This is an example of the profit list for Holstein. We've deliberately not, and that's all fuzzy, so I don't expect you to all see that, but certainly there's a copy in the papers that will be distributed after the meeting. Bull name, full name, and a list of particular breeding values that relate to profit. This next list is the Jersey reliability list, the same kind of concept. Over in the reliability list, it's ranked from the highest reliable bull down. So farmers can go to this particular list if they've got the last 10% of their semen inventory that they're seeking to buy and they want some rock solid bulls that rank highly on profit but have got a lot of daughters in their proof, they can come straight to this list and find the types of bulls they're after. The next particular tool is Selectable. Selectable is an online tool which we have developed, and we allow farmers to go in there and they can basically apply any particular weighting that they like to any particular traits that they like. At the start of that tool, there's a breeding objective, a tool which walks you through a number of questions. At the outcome of that quiz, you get a defined breeding objective. It's only a fairly basic approach, but the idea is to work out what are the key things that individual farmer likes to consider when selecting bulls. And then they're able to either click on a customised or a simple search to rank the bulls, all of the bulls in the ADHOS database, based on their particular selection criteria. And part of this tool is the requirement for the farmer to actually log in to start the process. Some of the feedback has suggested that a number of farmers don't necessarily like the login process, but what the login process actually does is that it allows farmers to log back in the next year when you're making breeding decisions to look at what was the process that you went through last year, which is quite important because genetic improvement's a long-term gain. You don't want to be making significant changes in your breeding objective year on year. You want to define a particular breeding objective and you want to have a degree of consistency when making bull selection decisions. This is just the front page when you log into the particular tool. You've got a quick search and comprehensive search and the breeding objective component, the breeding objective wizard up here on the right hand side. This is just a very quick screenshot of traits. This is production traits, non-production traits. The idea is you basically tick the particular breeding value that's of interest to you and you use a sliding scale to say how much weight do you want to apply to that objective. In the background there's a computation process that basically recalculates the ranking of size and you come up with the listing of size that match your particular breeding objective. You can see in this slide there are two colours. They're not overly clear on this slide, but the two colours represents where the bulls fit within the given population. The green bulls are the top 10% of the population. The brown or latte, I've been told this colour is bulls within the next tier, the top 20% of the population. So at a very quick snapshot, the farmers can understand what are the types of bulls that meet their breeding objective, how do they rank in terms of overall profit, and a simple process that they can then look at year on year to help define their ongoing breeding activities. The third particular tool I'd like to talk about this morning is what we've called the Genetics Progress Report. This is a in-progress tool. We haven't released this particular tool yet, but the purpose of this particular tool is to actually benchmark the rates of genetic gain within an individual farm. So farmers are able to actually look at the rate of genetic gain that they've achieved on farm for a group of traits. They're able to provide, as I've described up here, a picture at a herd level of the genetic merit of that particular herd, and it allows farmers to reflect on breeding decisions that they've made in the past. Was that decision of, was that group of bulls I picked in 2006 aligned with my overall breeding objective? The first part of the report is called Your Herd's Genetic Snapshot. The idea of this report is to keep it very clear and very simple. We've got 3 columns here: increased, remain stable, or reduced. The report basically indicates that in this period of time, in the last 10 years, this particular herd has increased in the area of profit and mastitis resistance. They remain stable for fertility and longevity, and there's been no traits at a genetic level that are reduced over that period of time. So it's just to give the farmer a bit of a snapshot. If these are the particular areas, these are the particular breeding objectives of that farm, how are they actually achieving those based on their selections over the last 10 years? The main component of the first page of this report is a genetics progress for profit. There is APR, the profit index, on the vertical axis here, year of birth of the animals on the horizontal. The blue line is the Holstein part of the herd. We've split this by breed, and the purple line represents the genetic trend for Holstein cross cattle. These tram lines, or these lines here, the middle one here is the national average, and the top one here is the top 10%. So a very quick snapshot, you can tell that for APR, for overall profit, the genetic trend of this herd is quite strong. It's just below the top 10% of the country in terms of rate of genetic gain for their Holstein breed. However, you can see with their Holstein cross, it's a little bit all over the place. And the farmer is able to look at that graph and say, why is that so? What were the particular bulls I used that may have resulted in this change over time? Or more to the point, in recent years, what has been the reason for this decline in the rate of genetic gain for APR for these crossbred animals? And they're able to reflect on the type of breeding decisions that they've made that's resulted in this outcome. What we also do in the report is that's on the front page. On the back page, we provide these smaller graphs of 6 key traits. We've got up here, this is production fat kilograms, this is production protein kilograms. The graphs follow the same trend, the blue being Holstein, the purple being the crossbred in the herd, and the dotted line being the national average. So very quickly, again, the farmer can assess their rate of genetic gain for fat and for protein, compare it or benchmark it to the national herd for both crossbred and purebred animals. This is the same material but for different traits. This relates to type. Overall type is the definition we use in Australia, longevity or survival. And again, you can see the rate of genetic gain for that particular herd for these traits for both the purebred lines and the crossbred lines relative to the national average. So this particular report, it's designed to be a 2-pager. It's designed to be a snapshot. It's not designed to be a complete, detailed analysis of every single piece of information on that farm. It's supposed to provide the farm with a snapshot of where would they like to be going and how is that herd trending based on their selection decisions. We call these kind of reports a call to action. If your particular breeding objective is longevity or survival, and the particular report shows that you're trending flat or even maybe falling away in terms of your rate of genetic gain for that trait, it requires a call to action the farmer to re-look at the types of bulls that they're choosing for the season coming in order to address that particular trend. The last particular piece of R&D that I'd like to talk about this morning is a research project that we're about to commence. We've called it Feeding the Genes. I haven't got up here the detailed scientific aims of the project. I'm focusing here on what are some more of the extension aims of the project. And the purpose of this project is to actually analyse the relationship between genetic merit and feeding systems. If you look at high genetic merit animals, do they perform well in high input systems just as well as low input systems, or is there a change? So that's one particular aim. The next is to provide information to farmers and advisors supporting the value of genetics, and this really focuses also on the third point, which is the perception that genetics is not as important because most cows are not fed to their genetic potential. There is a view, a particular component of industry that suggests that I can't feed my cows well enough, so I'll give genetic improvement a miss, or I won't provide as much focus on it because I can't feed my cows to their genetic potential. So what we want to do in this project is to actually analyse the genetic merit of the herd versus feeding system to quantify that particular issue and to address it. The general program or process for the project will be to compare high and low genetic merit cows within 5 clearly defined feeding systems, and I've listed the 5 here. Pasture, which is plus up to 1 tonne of grain in the bale. Pasture with more than 1 tonne of grain in the bale. This is a pasture with a partial mixed ration, which is either fed out on a feed pad or within the bale as well. A hybrid system, and a hybrid system is where cows are fed grazed for less than 9 months, and for the rest of the time they're fed a partial mixed ration, or a total mixed ration system, a TMR system. Just to give you a bit of perspective, Australia is very much a pasture-based system. We've probably got 80% of farms in these first 3 categories. So there is a significant amount of pasture emphasis, but we do want to look at across the 5 particular feeding systems that are defined. So in conclusion, what we're aiming to do is drive the ruddy genetic gain for profit in Australia while supporting farmers' individual breeding objectives. We see this as being important because farmers do have individual breeding objectives. There are subtle differences between why one farmer picks a group of bulls to another, and we want to be able to support those farmers in achieving those outcomes and making those outcomes data-driven decisions. I know the data-driven decision concept is one that's used within National DHIA in the US, and that's empowering people to make decisions based off the actual information on their farm. Just in terms of feedback on the tools that we've released to date, Selectable and the Good Bulls Guide have been tools that have been available for a number of years now, and the feedback is very positive, and we're certainly looking to grow this process with the release of the Genetics Focus Report, or Progress Report, my apologies, in the coming year. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much.